I first heard the words in a coffee shop, late on a Thursday afternoon, when the sun had already dipped below the buildings, and the lamps cast long, lazy shadows across the tables. I was flipping through my notes for the board meeting I was chairing the next day, an agenda packed with ambitious proposals for the nonprofit I'd joined 2 years ago. Across from me, Alex sipped a bitter espresso, eyes half-lidded. "You need to stop dreaming so big, Jess," he said, voice low, more tired than spiteful. He just visited his friend's new startup, another tech accelerator with yet another wild idea for reshaping the world, and apparently even that had seemed too ambitious for him. I laughed, louder than I intended. "Dreams are what got me here," I said, closing my notebook to give him my full attention. "You of all people know how important it is too." "Important, yes," he interrupted, tapping the table. "But at some point, you have to be realistic. This board you sit on, it's full of senior folks. They want results, not moonshots. Stop setting them up to fail." I felt the familiar prick of frustration. He always did this, undercutting my confidence with a shrug and a smirk. "They chose me," I reminded him. "I'm chairing the meeting tomorrow because they believed in my vision." Alex leaned back, shaking his head. "Just don't get hurt, Jess." I gathered my notes, cool as the steel tabletop under my fingers. "I'm not the one at risk of being left behind," I said, standing to go. He didn't look up as I brushed past. "Don't say I didn't warn you." That night, I lay in bed replaying our conversation, his tired warning, the soft glow of the coffee shop lights, the future flashing before me in bullet points on legal pads. The board meeting loomed at dawn, 50 potential grants, a multi-year partnership with a healthcare network, a pilot for a citywide education program. This was the future I'd championed since my first year on the board, bolder, broader, brimming with potential. Alex had always been my mirror, brilliant but cautious, cautious to the point of paralysis. When we'd met in law school, his rigor balanced my idealism. But somewhere after graduation, our paths diverged. He built a comfortable practice advising mid-sized corporations. I dove headfirst into purpose-driven work that demanded creativity and appetite for risk. His "stop dreaming big" critique stung but also ignited something. I resolved that tomorrow, I'd prove him wrong. The boardroom at Horizon Alliance was crisp and cool, a long mahogany table flanked by leather chairs. At one end sat the executive director, Maria Chen, her fingers steepled, eyes expectant. Around the table, 10 board members settled in, heavy binders in front of them. I took a deep breath and stood. "Good morning, everyone. Thank you for your time. Today, I'm excited to present our strategic vision for scaling Horizon's programs across 3 new regions and doubling our education outreach within 5 years." Maria nodded to me, a small smile allowing my momentum. I clicked a remote, and the screen behind me lit up colorful maps, projected impact metrics, timelines. As I guided them through each phase, research partnerships, grant timelines, community engagement models, I felt the board's energy shift. Questions came: what about funding security? How will we manage the staffing? Have we reviewed the risk matrices? I cycled through answers, acknowledging concerns, pointing to pilot data and financial models. One member, Mr. Delgado, raised his hand. "These are indeed ambitious goals, but are we overextending? Our current team is already maxed. How do you propose we sustain this growth?" I smiled, anticipating this. Sustainable expansion is key. That's why our first pilot includes a partnership with the City Foundation, which guaranteed seed funding for our initial team hires, project managers, and local coordinators. We'll phase hires across months 2 to 6, ensuring our current operations continue unimpeded. And our metrics show a 120% ROI on programs piloted in smaller markets. My breath caught. Hartwell, for Mia? The same program she'd scoffed at when I chose it. I stared at the screen, shock rippling through me. Heads nodded. Encouraged, I advanced the slide to a detailed cash flow projection. The CTO, Dr. Martinez, leaned forward. "Interesting. And what about tech infrastructure, data management for multiple regions?" With cloud-based platforms and our new data governance policy, we'll integrate local data streams into a central dashboard. We partnered with TechBridge Solutions for pro bono system design. Their team has already built our MVP. The room was warming to the plan. By the time I concluded, Horizon Alliance at scale, empowering communities with measurable impact, the board members were exchanging impressed glances. Maria Chen closed her binder. "Thank you, Jess. These proposals are precisely the vision we need to stay ahead. Let's vote to authorize this strategy and begin seeking the additional funding. Murmurs of agreement rippled. The motion passed unanimously. The triumphant glow of success sat in my chest as the meeting adjourned. I packed my laptop, offering handshakes and grateful smiles. Mr. Delgado lingered. Jess, well done. You've earned your seat. I nodded, heart still racing. As I left the boardroom, the sharp click of the door closing behind me sounded like a drum heralding victory. That afternoon, I received a text from a number I didn't recognize. Jess, it's Alex. My chest fluttered. I opened it. Congrats. Saw the announcement on LinkedIn. Ambitious plans, respect. Mind if I grab coffee tomorrow? My fingers hovered. The wound from his mocking words at the cafe threatened to open. But I tapped out a reply. Thanks. Coffee tomorrow works. 10 a.m. at our usual spot. That night, I reviewed the day's emails, funding notifications, partner approvals, a thank you note from Maria. Yet Alex's invitation carried a different weight. A chance to reconcile success with the one person who'd once cautioned me to curb my dreams. At 10 a.m. sharp, I slid into the booth at Java and Sage, the coffee shop where we'd spent so many study sessions. Alex arrived moments later, carrying 2 lattes. He sat down, offering me a mug. He drank deeply, his brow furrowed yet smiling. First off, I'm sorry for what I said. I didn't realize you'd make it happen the way you did. I set my mug down, warmth spreading through me. Thank you. It hurt, but it also reminded me why I'm here. He nodded, picking at the foam on his lattes. I've been thinking. I was comfortable in my practice advising safe bets. Kudos to you for taking the leap into risky territory and winning. He hesitated, then said, I actually applied to join Horizon Alliance's advisory board this week. Wanted to bring some of the corporate governance perspective. I know it's you people now, but I thought maybe I could help. My throat tightened. He passed over by the same board I'd helped lead. I forced a smile. That's actually interesting. Maria mentioned they were seeking corporate experts, but she made a point. They wanted more diversity in risk profiles. People willing to push boundaries, not just play safe. He leaned back, absorbing the implied reproach. I get it, they passed me over. I watched him, my ex, once so sure of himself, now uncertain. I felt a swirl of sympathy. They didn't say you're not valued, just that this board needed a different blend of perspectives right now. He exhaled. I guess I've always been in that corporate comfort zone. You go big or go home. Maybe I've been playing small. I sipped my coffee. We need both. Boundary pushers like me, and stabilizers like you. It's a system. He nodded slowly. So, does that mean you'd consider having me on your advisory panel someday? Not on the main board, but subsidiary group. I can still help. I smiled, heart open. I think that's a great idea. We could use someone who keeps us grounded, and you could learn a bit about vision without borders. He laughed, a real laugh that crinkled the corners of his eyes. Deal. That evening, I sat at my desk, the boardroom's mahogany surface, now scattered with notes for next month's meeting. I drafted an email to Maria. Proposal: create executive advisory committees to include cross-sector experts, for example, Alex Reynolds. Benefits: balances risk-taking with corporate discipline. I clicked send, feeling the same surge of purpose as I did when first ran those ambitious slides. I thought about Alex's journey from laughter at my big dreams to humility in being passed over, and crucially to desire to contribute again. It underscored a truth I'd learned through every snide remark, every hurdle. Big dreams need big support networks, yes, but they also need those who question and those who refine. I closed my laptop and gazed at the window. City lights beyond, a horizon of possibility. I whispered into the quiet room. Dream big, but build the bridges that carry you there. And as sleep beckoned, I felt ready for something even greater than tomorrow's board meeting, forging a community where every voice, big dreamer, and cautious soul found its place at the table. The next morning, I arrived in the boardroom before sunrise. The conference table, its surface gleaming under recessed lights, stretched the length of the room like a challenge waiting to be met. I placed my laptop, my neatly printed agenda packets, and a fresh notepad before each chair. At the head of the table sat Maria Chen's reserved nameplate, and next to it, an empty slot labeled Executive Advisory Committee. I paused in front of that slot, fingers brushing the smooth wood, and silently dedicated it to Alex. When the rest of the board filed in, Dr. Martinez from engineering, Priya from finance, Linda, the community relations director. You could feel the collective curiosity. They'd all seen my email proposal. This morning's session was the first real test of that idea. Maria strode in at exactly 8 a.m., coffee in hand and a sharp look in her eye that I'd come to love. It meant she was ready to dive in. "Good morning," she began, voice warm. "Let's start with new business." She gestured to the empty seat by the head. "First order of business, establishing an executive advisory committee. Jess, would you please walk us through your proposal?" I took a breath. "Thank you, Maria. AEC members would not be full board directors, but advisors in areas we need more depth. For example, corporate governance, risk analysis, strategic partnerships. I propose 5 advisors initially, each serving 1-year terms. Alex Reynolds, former in-house counsel at Bexley Enterprises, would chair the committee, providing pragmatic balance to our visionary goals." Dr. Martinez raised his eyebrows. "Alex Reynolds, the one you dated," I met his gaze. "Yes, he's declined board membership but expressed strong interest in advising. He brings 2 decades of corporate risk management. His perspective will sharpen our strategy, not dilute our mission." Priya leaned forward. "How will he integrate with our operations?" I clicked to the next slide, an organizational diagram showing the board, the advisory committee, and our executive team linked by dotted lines. The AEC will meet quarterly 3 times a year to review strategic roadmaps, financial models, and risk matrices. They will submit recommendations, which the board will consider and vote to adopt. It's a safeguard mechanism, expert counsel without additional voting power. Linda flipped through her packet. "I like the idea. Community partners often ask about corporate governance. If we can say we have an AEC, it underscores our commitment to transparency." She nodded to Maria. "I vote yes." Maria turned to Dr. Martinez. "Your thoughts?" He smiled. "I respect Alex's work, and I trust Jess's judgment. I'll second the motion." One by one the board voted, and when it reached Maria, she tapped her gavel, soft but decisive. The Executive Advisory Committee is established, with seat 1 pending recruitment. "Jess, please extend the invitation to Alex." I exhaled, relief and pride mingling in my chest. This was more than a symbolic gesture. It was a bridge between big dreams and disciplined execution. Maria smiled at me. "Well done." Later that afternoon, I stepped into the small cafe where Alex and I had our first coffee after the board meeting. He rose to greet me, wearing a dark gray suit, and that slightly guarded expression I recognized well from our past. Now it carried a tentative warmth, instead of condescension. "Jess," he said, offering his hand. I shook it firmly. "Congrats on the invitation." He took a seat, ordering a cappuccino. "I appreciate the chance. I reread your board proposal. Concise, evidence-based, ambitious yet thoughtful. I'd forgotten what vision allied with rigor looked like." I sipped my latte. "We need both vision to chart new territory and rigor to traverse it safely." He nodded. "Let's talk deliverables. What does the board expect from us first?" I pulled out a data sheet. "We're launching the community genetics screen in 3 pilot cities next quarter. The board wants AEC to review the pilot's risk management plan, participant consent processes, data privacy controls, vendor agreements. We present our feedback at next month's session." He flipped through the pages. "I've already drafted some compliance frameworks that align with GDPR and upcoming US federal biotech guidelines. I'll integrate them into your draft consent forms." I smiled. "That's exactly why we need you." That evening, back at my apartment, overlooking the bay, I found Maya waiting with a glass of Chardonnay. Her presence was a balm, reminding me of our countless strategy sessions and shared ambitions. "How'd it go?" she asked, pouring me a glass. I sank onto the couch. "Board approved the AEC. Alex will chair. He's on board and already drafting compliance frameworks." Maya beamed. "Look at you building teams in every direction. You're growing into a leader who not only dreams big, but builds the scaffolding beneath those dreams." I raised my glass. "To scaffolding." We clinked glasses, the city lights shimmering below, and I let myself savor the moment, the deal with Alex, the board's confidence, the balance between risk and vision finally falling into place. 3 weeks later, the AEC convened in a corner office lined with whiteboards. Alex presided from the head of the table, flanked by 3 other advisors, a data privacy lawyer, a former CFO of a biotech IPO, and a healthcare policymaker. The room hummed with measured energy as we reviewed the pilot plan. Alex tapped a point on the map of pilot cities. "Tier 1 oversight required here," he said, pointing to an underserved urban area. "Community groups need to be engaged early." I suggest adding 2 local liaisons to facilitate consent dialogues. I nodded. We have contacts from our public health advisory. I'll loop them in. The data privacy lawyer raised concern about biometric data storage. The CFO flagged budget overruns. The policymaker suggested exploring state grants. I scribbled notes, integrating each insight, feeling the project refine itself in real time. When we adjourned, Alex turned to me. This collaboration has been enlightening. You didn't fail when you pushed big goals, you just lacked runway support. I'm glad to lend it. His words struck me, a reversal of the initial critique, where once I wasn't built for business, now I was recognized as a leader whose ambitions demanded proper structure. The pilot launched on schedule. In each city, community coordinators staffed booths at health fairs. Participants lined up under pop-up tents with the Aurora Teal logo. Handheld tablets streamed our consent forms. Nurses guided them through cheek swabs. Within days, the first batch of genetic screening results trickled in, flagging risk markers and referring individuals to counseling services. By month's end, we'd screened more than 5,000 people, with a 90% satisfaction rate. I watched real-time dashboards in our operations center, lights flashing, data streams weaving into a tapestry of impact. An email notification popped up. City A, 2,200 screens, 98% consent comprehension, 0 privacy incidents. Another City B, 1,850 screens, 89% follow-up appointment attendance. The results were tangible, immediate validation of our vision and of the safeguards Alex and the AEC had put in place. That night, I gathered my team in the San Francisco office. We celebrated with pastries and sparkling cider. Dr. Martinez raised a toast to public health at scale and to the leader who made it happen. I looked around at their faces, my co-founder, my advisors, my operations director, and felt an overwhelming pride. This was bigger than any one person's dream. It was collective, built on trust and shared purpose. 4 months later, on the anniversary of that coffee shop critique, I sat in the same booth at Java and Sage waiting for Alex. I glanced at my phone. Hey Jess, running 2 minutes late. I smiled, remembering how he used to show up on time, tight-lipped. Now his messages were informal, respectful. He arrived sliding in across from me with a latte and a sheepish grin. Traffic was a nightmare. I laughed. No worries. I lifted my cup. To dreams built with both sky and scaffold. He clinked his mug. To dreams and the people who carry them. We sipped in companionable silence until our next chapter began, brainstorming a white paper on ethical AI in public health, planning a joint keynote at the Global Health Summit, mapping out Aurora's next regional launches. We immersed ourselves in the energetic rush of possibility, anchored by structure. One evening, as I prepared to depart for another leg of the biotech conference circuit, I paused at the foyer mirror, adjusting my blazer. I whispered to my reflection, "You built that." The thread of Alex's early dismissal no longer felt like a wound but a catalyst. His laughter had become a pivot point, driving me to prove, and then redefine, my capacity for leadership. I pocketed my travel itinerary and walked out the door, city lights dancing around me. The world awaited new protocols to refine, more patience to reach, fresh partnerships to forge. My role was no longer just dreamer, but builder, navigator, integrator. I carried the weight of my board's trust, my advisor's guidance, and the belief that audacious vision paired with rigorous execution could change lives. As the cab carried me toward the airport, I reflected on my journey, the coffee shop barb that stung, the board's ultimate embrace of my bold strategy, the invitation to build scaffolding with Alex, and the pilot whose success resonated across communities. It was a dance between sky and ground, between daring and discipline. My ex had told me to stop dreaming big. Instead, I'd built bigger to scaling health equity and genetic access, guided by my own network of strengths and checks. And as I boarded the plane for the next conference, I knew this was only the beginning, more insights to gain, more bridges to build, more horizons to pursue. Because now, every dream I dared to chase came laced with structure, and every blueprint I laid down carried the promise that I wasn't just built for business, I was built for impact. And that was a dream worth waking up to.